Hi, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about how you can restructure your courses for a generative AI world. We want to start by acknowledging that this is going to be work. It's substantial work that may seem daunting to fit into your already packed schedules. I would encourage you to take this in small chunks, one thing at a time. And as we consider how to restructure our courses, we will start down at the studs to use a building analogy and build them back up. For today's agenda, we are going to show you a quick demo of the Edge Copilot using a D2L quiz from a history course, and then we're going to dive a little bit more into restructuring your courses for a generative AI world.
So I selected Edge and Microsoft Copilot for this demonstration because these tools are available to you using your WCU credentials. But what I'm about to demonstrate can also be done with other AI tools, not just this one that I'm going to show you. This is also a great time to remind you that the university has not officially endorsed any AI products or tools. And a special thanks to Tia Malkin-Fontecchio for letting us use her quiz in this demonstration. So Tia had a 10-question quiz in D2L that uses a mix of question types. I'm taking it in the Microsoft Edge browser, which has the AI Copilot built directly into it. So I don't even have to jump between tabs, really. I can leave the AI Copilot open while taking the quiz and toggle it on and off as needed. Now, what I did there just a moment ago was I highlighted the text in the quiz, which can be a very normal operation that students might do for plenty of non-cheating reasons. And I was prompted right away with an option to send that text to the Copilot tool, which I did. Now, you'll notice that Copilot is providing a very long and full explanation to this question. It wasn't just answering the question right away with true or false. It was giving full explanation. So I could quickly kind of skim those results to try to get to what the right answer was. But if I wanted to, I could also read the full explanation to get some understanding of what is going on with the question. Even though this feels a little like cheating, there is still some educational opportunity sitting in that experience if students want to take it. Now, the AI got the question right, but it's a true-false question, and it had a 50-50 chance. So let's see what it can do with a multiple choice question. This time I'm demonstrating how you can copy and paste the answer into the AI tool. Again, the tool is going to provide a lot of extra content to get to the right answer. And you'll notice right now I'm actually editing the question a little bit. I can change up how I ask the AI in this tool if I needed to. So let's see how it responds. And I said it's going to give you a lot of very full explanation. And then there it goes. It's going to get started with that. But to make a long story short, it will successfully answer this question correctly again. So multiple choice can answer that too. Moving on to a different type of multiple choice question. This is one that the AI had a trouble coming back with an exact right answer. And part of that is because we were referencing a specific author. When I was looking at what the AI gave me, I had to really think about how I was going to respond to this question. And that was because the AI couldn't quite get it right because the author may not be fully in the AI the data that the AI is drawing on. But with what it gave me and what I knew, I was able to make a correct guess and get the question right. So what about a multiple choice question with something like all of the above or none of the above? Guess what? AI got that right too. It was able to work through each of those answer options with an explanation and come to a conclusion at the end that said, hey, all of these are accurate. And I won't bother you with watching it work through all of that again, but needless to say, that's how it ends up. So one last question type was a written short response question. These questions are a little harder to auto grade because you have to account for all the variation of students misspelling or different word choices, but they're not impossible to set up with auto grade, or at least to set up in a way that can help you grade some of them. The AI has a harder time answering this question correctly, particularly because this question is referencing material directly from Tia's course. Now, I would have been in the ballpark with the answer that I recorded, which was catalyst, but it's not the right term she was looking for. So we highlight this example here as a way of showing how AI tools are shaking the foundations of assessment particularly lower order assessment, and are really forcing us to reevaluate what we're doing and why we're doing it. So that leads us to the second focus of today.
So my first ask is, what skills do students need? We'll be looking at this through a history lens, as you can tell, but this can be applied to any field. Based on your experience and expertise, what do you, as a historian, believe are the skills students need to master to succeed personally and professionally and contribute to the common good? Said another way, to be a good historian, what are some of those key skills? We think some of those skills include synthesizing from diverse sources, creating a narrative, summarizing information, and conducting research.
Now, remember, we're using a historical example, but you can just change history to whatever your discipline is. So I was a history undergrad major, and I had a professor who assigned 200 pages of reading a week. And then the only assignment we had to do for him was a 200-word summary of that reading. And because I did that activity over and over again, I learned how to be really concise in my writing, how not to waste a single word. And at that time, there was no escaping the work. You either did those really good summaries or you didn't, and you couldn't do them without having done the reading. Today, though, that assignment can be handled by Gen AI tools, which raises a question for me. Is that a skill I still need to have today? Maybe I just need to know what concise writing looks like so that I can see it when the AI creates it. Or maybe there is still value in learning to be concise. I don't know how to answer that question. So I would say to you, what do you think? This story illustrates how you can start to ask those questions about the impact of AI on each individual skill. But it also highlights the real challenge in trying to assess if students actually know how to do the skill or if they're using AI instead. If I don't actually physically see students engaging in the summarization process, I won't be able to say with certainty that they did it. Thus, we have a set of skills here that we've been able to identify as ones that students are probably going to need in a generative AI world. And we didn't come up with these. They came from a presentation that we attended last fall. But these are some skills that we think students are going to want to work on because AI can't do these things for them. We would ask you, what would you add or take away from this list? And we would also ask you to consider how this list aligns with the list of skills you were thinking about for your discipline just a few minutes ago. Finally, another question you can ask is, how are your courses helping students develop these skills, particularly as they relate to your specific discipline? So in this context, we would say, as they relate to being historians. When students are working on skills, they can't do that in a vacuum. They need content knowledge. But if we can quickly get to content knowledge in today's world through a search or through a generative AI query, it raises some questions about the value of basic memorization. I think memorization might be devalued, but that's an open question. With generative AI, the emphasis on higher order practices, which are the very human practices, increases. So in some respects, you can probably push students faster to move to higher order things more quickly, especially if you're willing to allow more looking up of information and less memorization. And so that leads to another question. What content-based knowledge do students need to do that higher level thinking and analysis in your discipline? So from that same presentation that we experienced, that we watched, we got these 6 suggestions. We're going to take each one in turn.
So first we have the structural basics of the discipline. What do students need to know to have conversations about history? Some of this may tie back to that skills list. Next, we have key content areas that you can examine against. So if students learn A, it will help them to be successful with X, Y, and Z. To use Tia's course again as an example, what is one revolution that if students learned about opens up their ability to understand other revolutions in an analogous process? Next, we have magic words. That's vocabulary that has a very particular meaning to a discipline. So for example, reasonable person is a legal term that generative AI would interpret maybe a little differently than a lawyer would. Can you think of any specific to your subject matter? These magic words are ones that need coverage in your courses and in some ways are moderately AI proof. Next is research tools. How can students trust and verify the information they are receiving, and which tools are specific to your field? Remember, generative AI tools sometimes make things up. Then we come to decision-making tools. How are decisions made in your subject matter, and what frameworks or processes do students need to know? And finally, we come to common areas of bias. Where do you see common areas of bias in your field? To summarize, we talked about these two lists, student skills and essential content, and you'll want to start making sure that your course can connect these.
Now, here's a quick example from history. If you use an AI image generator to create what is actually a fake image of a historical event, you could then ask students to identify inaccuracies in that image. And they're having to pull on lots of those different skills, right? There might be a key magic word that's being represented in the image. They definitely have to use those research tools to find out, like, did this happen or not? They have to use those decision-making processes that are unique to history to help work through that evaluation process. If they're doing it collaboratively, there's the communication and team building aspects that are going on. And this would be a relatively easy type of thing to do in some other disciplines as well. You wouldn't do historical images, but you would try to come up with other images that look real but have some aspect that are incorrect about them. So to conclude here today, we have a quote that kind of encapsulates that idea of maybe we can go faster and push students further now that we have generative AI tools to include in our instructional toolbox. And I'm going to go ahead and read that. One approach is to ask students to gather and interpret fresh evidence by doing ethnography, interviewing people, digging into archival boxes, organizing corpora for text analysis, etc. These are assignments of a more demanding kind than we have typically handed undergrads, but that's the point. Some things are actually easier now, and colleges may have to stretch students further in order to challenge them. So what questions do you have about AI? Reach out to us in the Teaching and Learning Center, and we'll try to help you out.